Welcome to the Language of Markets live session. It's Freaky Friday, the 26th. How is everybody? Well, making it? Welcome back, everybody watching the recordings. And welcome back, everybody that's been putting up with me all week here. It's been a fun week. Just looking at the comments, and Nate says it's official. He hates the CL. He officially hates the oil. So I thought we'd riff off that a little bit, and then we'll get into a little bit of a lesson. We'll do a little bit of review, and there's a few patterns I want to add, and there's a question from a member. The CL is a triple back diamond rated thing to trade, right? Pete says he's not alone, right? Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. It's pretty important. I might take it a different direction, but I officially hate the CL. Yeah, no, I know the feeling. All right. We started during the week. We talked about. All right, so let's get serious now. All right. It was only 2 trades. I made some money, but so much emotional energy got burned. They says, yeah, that happens too, right? At least you made some money. A lot of emotional energy can get burned. Sometimes you got to get off that point of contact a little bit. But anyways, we talked about starting where you're at the other day. We don't have a choice. We have to start where we're at. You can't start from an imagination. I'm going to use this officially hating the CL to talk about that a little bit. And we talked about changing with change, right? I'm going to tie everything together. It needs to be like a big, long article and a week-long talk, I think. But I think I can ground it. One of the things, we'll talk structures and stuff here in a minute. One of the things, we have to talk how, what we're doing internally, how we're twisting and turning things around and not seeing what we need to see. So we have to talk about that a little bit each week, the internal side. So we talked about starting where you're at, all right? So let's relate this to, frustrations. If it comes to trading, we all have some frustrations. I don't care who you are. Let's actually have a conversation. Let's relate it back to the frustrations of, and this might not be Nate's problems, but I'm gonna use it. Of 12, 15, 20 losers in a row, right? We've all been there where we just can't do anything right. Right? We talked about that some weeks ago. You get in one of those slumps, you have, 10, 20 losers in a row. If you're using good money management, it's not going to kill you. But it kind of sucks, doesn't it? It's a wall. It's a wall. And one of the things I do here with everybody and myself, and it's a practice, is I want to turn, all right, we have this crappy experience of 18 losers in a row, or I officially hate the CL. Okay, this is it. I wish I could draw a little cartoon stickman guys here real easy. But what we normally do with our experience, right, of that, what do? We bebop, we run into this experience of frustration, and we could stuff it, but normally the way we stuff it is try to, eliminate it. We go the other way, right? We don't like that. What can we do to fix that? Instead of going here, we go that way. What can we do? A new method. What can we do? We can, whatever your poison happens to be, to distract yourself from feeling the frustration of 20 losers in a row, right? Whatever you do, right? You can eat, you can drink, go for a walk, whatever. And so one of the things I do here is say the most effective way to handle any of this, and listen, this is probably the toughest practice in the whole world, is to turn into your experience rather than turn away from your experience. So I'm always pushing us into our experience of the ugly. It seems stupid to go further into the ugly, doesn't it? It does. But It's the only way to turn into that experience, all right? Because that's what's going on. That's starting where you're at. Because if you turn away, right, you're clouding the situation with your own personal expectations and desires. And things go poorly. And it's no different when we're trading, right? This is why I say the facts jack. Keep coming back to the facts jack, because if we add stuff on, our own personal stuff that has nothing to do with them, it clouds things. And we all do it. It clouds things. And it's the same thing with this experience, right? You run away from it, you're going to get clouded. So let's relate this to something else besides trading. Anybody ever have somebody, probably a family member, good friend, where you're trying to, it's like hitting a brick wall. It's an untenable situation. They will not hear your point of view about something. They're arguing, and there is nothing you can do, probably with your kids, right? There's just nothing you can do to get through to them, right? You know that frustration where you're just stuck? It's the same thing as 18 losers in a row, that frustration. If you're trying to work with somebody and they will not hear you, period, the end. They're just stubborn jackals. Of course, you might be the stubborn one, but who knows? Everybody been there? Nothing you can do. Maybe a boss, might be a life situation. You've tried everything. Everything. And so you're trying to show them how, they're stomping on you or something, right? And there's just nothing to get through. That's a frustration. It's no different than 18 losers in a row. It's the same thing. And what I'm saying is that moment of frustration is the thing that needs to be fully gone into and experienced. And it's the hardest practice in the world. And I bring this up because trading brings up so many frustrations. I learned if people are closed, nothing will work, even if the communication will save their life. Yes, but what do we do, Edward? Right? I know what I usually do. I 86 them. Enough with you, right? But maybe you're in a situation where you can't 86 them. You can't get rid of them. You can't just eliminate them. And so then you're really stuck, right? Nothing will work. But what I'm telling you is if you go into that, some clouds clear. All right? Maybe it doesn't completely work or not work, but some clouds clear about which direction to go. And I'm not saying to roll over for anybody. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you run into a difficulty, walk into it or feel it rather than try to avoid it. It's a subtle thing, but you guys should know what I'm talking about. And this has to do with starting where you're at, because when you start where you're at, you go woof, and right here you're present again. It's very truthful, Nate, is what it is. You just got to look into it without attaching anything to it. They don't own that. And if you look, every one of them suggests something like that in a different route. We can say it very simply and very folky, turn into your fears, The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, that kind of thing. But it's 18 losers. It's frustrating. And so turning into it is frustrating. It ain't easy. But what I'm telling you is that's where you're at. You can't be in Tahiti if you ain't in Tahiti. If you're in New York, you can't be in Tahiti. It's just not even possible. All you can do is deny, and this is where the stuffing it part comes, all you can do is deny being in New York, freezing, or 100-degree humidity. But you got to be where you're at, and it's the same thing with trading. You got to be where you're at, period. Because if you just keep going, and how this manifests in trading is we look for more and more stuff to throw at the wall. We look for more and more methods. We look for more and more setups that this will work and that won't work. That's how that manifests. You like Fiji better? All right, I'll go for Fiji. I want to visit Bali. Maybe the Galapagos? Yeah, we could pick. But you got to be, if you're there, you can't be in New York either. And so this is just something to look into your own experience, because it's the same frustration when you're dealing with somebody who just won't get you. And so what do? We clamp down, we close up, slap them upside the head sometimes. But a trading frustration is something, and it's very odd if you turn into it, right? Then guess what happens? You can quickly move on. And it's changing with change and flowing with change. I have to write something up about all this and talk about a how-to practice. But the how-to practice is basically, you got 18 losers in a row? Get curious about it. Fully sit in that. It's a give up. Anybody ever just tried, and they finally give up, and then things kind of clear up, right? It's kind of like hitting the bottom. So there's a little bit of a give up. You like this, Mike? I just changed time frames. Now, sometimes that's good, right? You can change time frames. Sometimes it's good as a tool, okay? A little distraction to knock you off the point is good as a tool, as long as you don't go spending your life. See, this is tricky, because we all want to find the right time frame and everything that's good for us, but we can use things as a tool rather than let them use us. So we can use certain things to, like, knock us off that frustration a little bit, so we can get curious about it instead. And like trying to run through water and then realize you need to float on it instead. Yes, it's a basically try, and you kind of give up all the trying or fighting the situation. So yeah, it's kind of like that, right? It's kind of like that. It's like those first test pilots who realized, they kept passing out, going up too high, and then crashing and dying. They realized if they quit trying to control everything, things kind of worked out. Yes, it does have something to do with effort versus intention. But the effort, Grace, it's not effort versus. The effort is to catch yourself running away and come back. That's where the effort goes, rather than the effort in trying to run away harder. Does that make sense? Bit tricky. All right, I don't want to go too far into this. Just wanted to spike you. The king, I think I reached that with the CL today, just cleared the whole chart and was willing to be anew. Yeah, but there's also, there's something to just sitting in a frustration. I tell people, go sit in front of the wall. And it's usually better than trying to figure it out. Why? Because we're going to figure it out the same stupid way we figured it out that got us into the mess in the first place. Right? It's a loop. So anyways, all you got to do is ground this in some reality. Just note there's somebody that will not listen to you. The line's not going to help you, right? So I experienced this myself a few times this week trading, and something magical happens. All of a sudden, vision clears, and I get it. Woof. And it wasn't any, and it's all the stuff I teach here, but this is that little extra something having to do with, ability and skill. And yes, I got back to center, and when I got back to center, Edward, everything formed. I didn't have to go through a major checklist. Everything formed up, and I just saw what needed to be done. And there was a little give up in that, right? So it's not a matter of rolling over for the person, because it doesn't mean the situation automatically gets fixed. I mean, we all live in some hard situations with some hard people. The basic practice, get a little curious about the frustration, see what happens, rather than take a baseball bat to them. I can do that sometimes as part of my practice. That's why it's called a practice, right? We can do it sometimes. But the effort, like we mentioned, the effort is to, it's not effort versus intention. The effort is to have the intention to keep coming back and turning into it. That's where the effort comes from. Not trying to fix it, but keep turning into that. And listen, you're going to feel it. There's a whole crappy feeling associated with it. So anyways, yeah, you get curious about all the crappy feelings and then use them as a way to learn. Exactly. You get curious. And something clears up and goes wham, and you're centered. What is being centered, Edward? Right? It's coming back from Tahiti. You can be someplace. You can either go to, Siberia, or you can go to Tahiti, but it's coming back to where you're at. That's what being centered is, even if where you're at happens to suck. That's what I'm saying. And a lot of times it happens to suck, especially after 18 losers in a row. All right, so this is just something to ping you on, right? I realize you were never in Tahiti, but rather freezing New York. Yeah. And then go get a jacket, right? You're there. Why fight it? Have a snowball fight, something, you're there, right? So that's what happens with the trade. That's what happens with trading. I just try to ground these things as much as we can. All right. And so a lot of the exercises I'm doing are helping us to see some of these things I'm talking about, without just theory. So, for instance, I asked everybody to just do a little bit of practice this week. Just go ahead and hit some things, right? I gave you a basic method. Use swings or presses, right? Just go ahead and hit some things and learn. All right, so maybe I do this. All right, so here's how this might go. I got a swing. I sell it right here. I get stopped. I feel like crap. I want to give up. I want to find a checklist. I want to find something new. This crap does not work. But if you just practice and you notice that, and if you actually turn into those frustrations, something clears up because you go wham. You leave Tahiti, you come back to your crappy little frustration. And then you say, all right, you watch. I'm going to try this one. Or this one. And so you learn something about this. You learn something about this. You took a loss. You made some money. Maybe you learn that sometimes you're going to take losses. I know, we all have something different to learn. Maybe we're all trying to avoid taking any loss. Maybe it's no big deal to take a loss and then pop back on, right? We all learn something a little different. We all learn something a little different about price after it comes out of this hole, and it's hot. We all learn something a little different about some of the things we've learned, and we pointed this dead out right when it was live, right? This tail. Look at that tail. Look at that. Look at that. Combine. Make a story, right? This is one of those times where things went woof for me, right? You see that tail. All I want to do is sell this thing. Boom. Why? Because I have some dead method. All I want to do is sell this thing. I'm watching it, this tail. Look, I can identify that because we've identified it. We've said, oh, it's bigger than everything else. It represents effort. What happens next? And then we watch, and then we watch. Okay, look, a tail on the other side. Look at this. See? All of a sudden, because we're reading the language of price, oh, now look at that sucker. Oh, look, the story's coming together. See that? Outside bar. Ah, I'm getting it. What's going on? And all this happens in an instant because we've done a lot of practice. And they're testing it. They're toying with it. They're grinding up through it. Ah, look, who won? This is now a swing, guys. See, this is the technical aspect. But do you notice I'm giving it a little life? Otherwise, it's dead, and it won't work for us. Oh, I friggin' get the whole thing now. And it had nothing to do with a special magical line or anything else. Had nothing to do with saying Om or hypnotizing myself or any of that stuff. Had nothing to do with, going and getting a massage. It had to do with sitting in the frustrations a little bit and rolling around in the mud from some practice. And then actually sitting in the frustration and then a little bit of clarity. And then, oh, that's just friggin' easy. I teach that all day long. I don't care if we're outside the line. Right? Boom. So you get how something can wham, come together? Wilson did not help you. Who's Wilson? The basketball? Soccer balls? Oh, yeah, Wilson makes all the balls. Oh, the movie. Gotcha. That was a good one, wasn't it? Volleyball? Hey, Nate says, I find it helps to know what feeling sensations come up when frustration sets in. Exactly. All right, so this is more of an advanced practice, what Nate said. How do you do that? Well, you look. Where do you feel it? And it's not that you can just do something about it. Now it's conscious rather than buried because you went into your experience rather than away from it. But exactly, you need to know what it looks like first. So that's a very nice way to put it, because it does show up in a feeling, right? It shows up in a feeling. So anyways, this is how you get a trade and you do the technical part. Make sense? And this is how you do the practice to roll around, get frustrated, get pissed, get upset, get sad, get depressed, get excited, and see it all. And there's other practices we can do. The practice part is very important. Otherwise, it's just talk. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to everybody. Because when we've done our training on this stupid little thing, which isn't bad all by itself, right? Things come together. It's a delicate little switch, guys. I know most of you here, and you've been working your butts off, and you've done a lot of training. We got more training to do. And there's a delicate little switch in having it all go whoom, come back to center and putting it together. And being okay with, okay, it got blasted. You know what? You're going to get blasted a lot. You're going to mix up the blast with the times you make it, and it's all going to be rolling around in the mud. This was a nice example of the grind up in JPY, exactly. Structure-wise, it had to finally test these guys. But this was a nice example of they are just not letting off this thing. And we can draw various lines. We can draw various, what did we draw the other day, right? We drew something like that. I don't know. We can draw various lines to help us. I like this. And I like this. See, it grabs the multi-pivot. It grabs the frequency. We can grab various structures to help us. And it's like Mike O said, right? He switched time frames just to get another point of view, which is good. Use it. So we can use our tools the same way we can switch time frames or instruments or take a break from something. Sounds like you need a break from the CL, Nate. And then you come back to it a little bit fresh. Now, this practice of turning into is the most difficult thing in the world, by the way. So maybe we can do a little bit more of a bigger thing on it one day. All right, so enough of all that. Just thought I'd ping us a little bit. It's real easy. Run into your frustrations, not away from them. Now, let's do some practice. All right? Let's do some practice. One of the things, we'll practice on this, and how about we practice on the gold? We'll look at a few other things. I got a few live things to look. I got all kinds of things to look at. All right. Let's look at the beans. The beans have been capturing my attention. The beans have been capturing my attention. The gold's been capturing my attention. And there's something here we can learn from the beans in doing our review work. So it's the end of the week. You've had your good moments. You've had your stupid moments. It's time to do a little bit of review, a little bit of work, see what's going on with this thing, see what we can learn. Okay? And what I want you to do is see the story Price is telling. Okay? I want you to see the story Price is telling. Actually, let's start out with gold before beans, because gold is a live story in progress. All right? So this is something as a practice we can do in all our markets. I gave you basically two things this week to look at. Swings, minor and major, and presses. Swing level and bar level. See, it's sneaky. See how I subcategorize them, and two things all of a sudden turns into 10 things? Haha. All right, so this is gold. All right, so let's take you... Let's just take you where you're at. This is live. Gold's telling a story. If you're on this chart, how do you get the story that gold's telling us? Well, we do have a way to start. We do have a way to start. And that is swings, right? Swings, exactly. Yeah. We do have a definition. Major, the largest reaction leg on the board. Minor, next largest. So this helps us at least find a little ground in this mess. Because otherwise, we're going to be all over the place, applying every technique to every little thing. And this is another little talk we're going to have next week about what we're after, because this guides what we see. So we go like this. Swing. And what I'd like for you to do in your markets is looking at just swings and presses. That's going to limit things. Looking at just swings and presses. Do a review and see if you can put a story to what Price was doing, right? So you can understand it for yourself. So a new low confirms a high. This is the biggest reaction leg on the board. It's bigger than everything. Next thing we do, what's the next biggest? So we follow the impulse leg down. This is the next biggest. So we have major. And it actually helps to do some of this while you're trading. Because it does slow us down a little bit. We do tend to get a little excited because there's money on the line. There's self-worth on the line. There's all the blood, sweat, and tears and frustration on the line. All right, so minor swing, major swing. So I'm already beginning to frame things up. So as I walk into this market, I can just, every time price pivots, I can put a projection there. Okay, I can put a projection there. So I'm sort of giving a little bit of an example about, your review and how you walk through it and you spend time learning. I can say, all right, the red got beat. And right away, I can notice that the thing pulled back and took off again. Okay. I mean, that's interesting. Does everybody's eye do a lot of reverse engineering? Everybody's eye should look to where this guy stopped. Look at that. So red got beat. Pretty hard stop too, right? They were here though, weren't they? Right? They weren't. It's not like they didn't tell you. And there's another outside bar. We're going to talk a little bit about outside bars today. A little bit. And so red got beat and we pulled back. Okay. I'm going to, Nate says one of the things I successfully marked was that boxing. Yeah, it takes time, especially if you're doing too much. Especially if you're doing too much. I just, this just fell on me as I looked at it. It's in my review work. I'm really just looking at swings and presses with this guy. I'm trying to see clean swings and presses in here. And I'm not even taking all the time I need to take with this. So I see this thing. Now let me digress a little bit into how objectives will frame what we see. And what I mean by objectives is what we're after. And I'm just going to say what you're after. You can think about what swing am I after. Okay? Because we tend to do a lot of mixing and matching and end up confused. So for instance, if I saw this change in behavior, right? It didn't break the swing, but it broke this level. And I got long here, right? Look, this guy, what did it do? It made a new high, did it not? It did. If I went swing to swing, see what I'm learning here? Now look, I'm isolating this. If I went swing to swing, I'm seeing that this guy right here made a new high. If I get long there and I happen to be after, I don't know, this swing, I might start confusing the issue. I'm going to talk longer on this maybe next week. But if I'm just after, if all I'm looking at is this and I get long, look, this is a successful trade, guys. Right? Good money in that. All right? You can't be after everything at the same time is one of the things I'm saying. You can't be after this swing, this swing, this swing, this. And if we mix too many things up, we get into trouble. It's hard enough mixing major and minor. But we want to know what we're after because that will start to direct what we see and what we leave out. So if I was after that swing, boom. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. As I'm looking at this, maybe I'm after this possible swing. Then I'm pretty much going to ignore that unless I want to get cute. All right, so what swing am I after? So let's finish telling the story here. I will say that often I draw too quickly, and that biases my subsequent analysis, similar to drawing too much data. Yeah, just erase a lot. Hey, just make it a practice. I mean, you notice you're drawing too quickly. That's good. You're conscious of it. All right, erase a lot. No big deal. And you notice you bias something. All right, so erase a lot. So come back to simple. Let's just come back to swings. Red got beat. We're right in the blue area, right? Now, forgetting all these little machinations going on here, follow the swings on up. We can see them, can't we? This happens so much. This is like that grinding up in the yen, right? This happens so much. So notice I'm doing a lot of following, not predicting. Predicting will get us in trouble. So I'm following, right? I'm following. This is like a little bar level press, isn't it? So it's something I can view. I'm also going to happen to notice that it's breaking into this. You guys see that? The press is breaking into the major. And I'm also going to notice that minor breaks into major. So you see I'm seeing a story here. Now I want you to do this as a review. I'm going to do this one live. But I want you to do this as a review so you can see what happens and tell the story. Just practice telling the story. Practice telling, because that will start to get you to understand what's going on, and you can go, woof. And we're just using our tools here. We've got little swings here. Remember, we're following little swings. We're always following swings. We're always following swings. I see a press. Bar level press. So this is my review, right? This is my review. I see a bar level press. And listen, if you get good at this review, you'll get good at doing it in real time sometimes, eventually. Right? Get good at doing the review and then learn to do it in real time. So do you see the story? Do you see how we started with a blank chart and I see we made a minor swing? We broke the minor into this. We did that into that. I can draw a little model. We're kind of like that now, see? All right. And it's nice. It forms up for us. Again, I'm just doing a little bit on the review work. There's a lot of little things going on here, but notice I kind of subtracted all the little tiny things except for, that are inside of these swings, right? I'm just worried about, clean air and all of that. All right. Doesn't hit that. Zoom. All right, so if I'm doing swings, do you guys see the story here? Do you guys see this last swing? Do you guys see this thing trying? Let me take that out for a minute. Do you guys feel that we bounced? We tried? And then look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Right? Oh, yeah. Zoom. What got zoomed? That try. That try. So there's a feel here, right? So we can say price tried here. So I'm marking the chart, I'm telling the story, and I'm also demonstrating how I do my own work. This is the way I see this. Okay. This is now a swing, isn't it? Everybody tracking me on that? Right? See, now we're going down. This is now a swing, right? Yawa. Yeah. Okay. Was there something that projected that swing? This is what we want to see as we work. We want to see this in our review work. Right? We see, do you see, if you're not sure what projected that swing, again, just like frustrations, get a little bit curious. We know we can draw the length of it. Ah, there's an LSB right here. You guys see the mountain and the valley and the zoom? Okay. So now we have an LSB right here. The LSB projects this swing, just like that. So now it's a bit of a complicated story, even though it's not a lot of data. Some stories are easy, like the yen. That was an easy story. All right, so now we got a good feel. All right, we broke a minor up into this guy. We charged up through. We broke the LSB. We pulled back right through that zoom. The zoom's telling us something. And now we're current. Now we're current with this thing. And so I'm not going to finish the story, but I want you to maybe put a paragraph of your own with your own chart telling the story that Price did. This is an exercise. This is a practice. This is a practice to help it. And this is just review work. So notice I'm not complicating too much. This is just review work. So the story is something about a minor getting busted into a major and then turning. And now this guy live is trying, and we'll get to see what happens on Monday or Tuesday. We'll get to see if the try makes it, or since we can draw very precisely, right, we'll also notice how this just reached the median line, which is also a very good learning experience about median lines. Remember the other day I told you guys a lot of times we're better off just selling each one of these dang median lines like that than some of the crazy things we do. Tune in next week for the exciting conclusion, right? It's a good drama. We've been doing that live with so many markets, Nate. It's like, it's better than the movies. Really. Put some money on it. You'll feel it, right? And so do it and you'll feel it, right? And you get all the stuff. It's not that there weren't other trades that you could do in here. But there's so much teaching on this one chart. I can't even begin to, we spend the whole session. So we'll take a picture of that. And so one thing you can do to track that swing is track that, and just median line wise, guys, the other thing you can do is remember this one. Right? This is describing the minors. Take that like this. This is describing the minors within a major. So if you want, you can leave it alone. Tell a news story here. But, I mean, do you guys feel the pressure on this thing going down? All because we found a swing? Pressure. Right? Boom. Okay. There's pressure on it. And if it turns, it's going to surprise. And then it'll go up, and then I go up with it. Now, if I get all hooked into the story I told and I don't let it go, if it changes, I got to let the story change. If it changes, it changes, right? Don't fight it. So I don't know about you guys, but this sucker feels heavy. Let's do just one more thing we were learning with one of our markets, with another practice trade, right? The sucker feels heavy, right? This is one we did live. Feels heavy. Now notice I got in. I didn't get stopped. I'm still riding. It does feel heavy, right? And so that's the starting place for us, Grace. It feels heavy. Now you're hooked into it. When it feels light, feel light with it. But when it feels heavy, well, give it an extra push off the cliff. Jump on it. Kick them when they're down. So Phil had a really good idea up here. But listen, do you remember we started this chart? The whole thing was about catching along. The member was bringing up. The whole thing was about catching along. All right? And we turned around and looked at it. And we grounded ourselves a little bit. And I thought, well, just sit on this thing. This looks like it's sitting. Sit on this thing. And this thing felt like it was going up. And you feel like you're missing all of these swings. This is a brilliant lesson, especially for us to learn in the Aussie if we ever try to buy the Aussie again. That poor Aussie. I don't know, those guys, they need a medic alert bracelet. Help, I've got up. I'm not going to be up for long. For years now, right, Nate? Help, I've got up. I mean, it's very hard not to have a bias in the Aussie for me. There are some long trades in there. We've hit them. But do you get what I'm saying here, right? This thing was grinding up. It looked like a reversal. But what's it doing, right? Don't deny what it's doing. And I looked at it, and I wanted to get long, too. Do you guys see? This is such a brilliant thing, right? See the beautiful swap? What's it going into? And on top of that, it took me days of sitting in this thing. Days of thinking I'm wrong and watching my mind go zzz, zzz, zzz. And how do you get that? How do you know how you feel like that rather than just be super cool? I put an order and I took my big money, right? How do you get that own personal? You get in the dang thing. That's how you get it. So hence the practice. Practice always important. Always important. All right, so let's move on with a few more lessons here because we got a couple things to investigate. Beans, right? Beans telling a story also. And Beans has got a good lesson for us. Beans is going to take us into seeing something about presses and adding a dimension to them. I like the Beans. Sometimes I get in a mood of trading the Beans quite a bit. And they've been active, so I've been looking at the Beans. Novi Beans. Again, we'll start with a little bit of learning and grounding ourselves. What's the swing? Well, I don't really see much in this thing, but I can go like this. I can go like this. I can say that's the swing. I can then get curious with this. Because I don't have much here other than, this is actually my last biggest swing on the way up, isn't it? See? They're kind of like this, they're kind of like this, they're kind of like this, and then there's no more. So that does become the major LSB for that run, doesn't it? Okay. Make sense? See how we're putting structure to something that was just blah? Okay. Now, let your eye roam this. Roam the swings. All right? And see if you see a couple things that stick out. So I'm going to take it and maybe draw the model. from here. Does this represent this? Kind of, sort of? All right, so now we're going to go into a little bit of subtlety here since we're telling a story here. Just a little bit of subtlety. Do you see the quick jump and steepness of this? Do you see the quick jump and steepness of that? Everybody see that? It's a very familiar structure, right? Whether you know it or not, I'm just bringing attention to it. Yeah, right? It relates to gaps. It relates to the press. It's got an essence of it, right? It's a kind of a steep up and then a big down. Yes, it's like an outside bar, exactly. It's like an outside bar. But let's just see the shape of it for now, Raj, right? See the shape of it. And then we see it. We can see it, right? We can see it. We can see it stop doing that, and then we can see it kind of toggle underneath for a while, right? So we stopped going down, and we can see it toggle, and then boom, right? You guys see that? And then you can see the retest, right? See the zoom retest? Ah, you jumped me, Raj. Hang on. Hang on. Hang on. No, don't be sorry. I love it when you do that. I'm glad to see how quickly you're seeing things. Daddy is starting to really know me. I'm not sure. But does everybody see that beautiful zoom retest? Right? This beautiful multi-pivot line. See this thing like this. See the zoom. See the swap. See the beautiful. This is something I will play in a heartbeat under a lot of situations. Yeah, you too, Nate, right? But let me get another point across before I get there. This is an entry I will take in a heartbeat. But let's notice something about this entry. What is it driving up into? The major. You see it? See the shape of this? And under certain situations, I will take this in a heartbeat. But look at it. This thing is driving up into the major. Is it swinging? Absolutely, it's swinging. Right? Absolutely. It's swinging. It's swinging up. See? Absolutely, it's swinging. That's a swing. But you see, it's driving into the major. I want to learn that so we don't just take every silly pattern we learn and play it indiscriminately. There's something more to learn about these, and I'm going to get there with presses too. Because otherwise we just get a little upset and say, oh, this doesn't work. But there's more to it. I'm just taking us in steps. That's all. So right now, this is how, listen, this is how I learn. This is how I've learned price action. Learn to make distinctions and then look at the chart and see what it does. And that's a lot different than learning an Elliott wave system or a median line system and seeing what, it's dead. It's like this dead, rotted thing. No juice in it. But we can learn to see some things, make aware of some things, make some distinctions, and then see some things for ourselves and become traders. And so we see that, right? That's a bump into that. Once I learn that, I don't indiscriminately take every one of these. I might use that as a bump to sell that. Okay? Now, you guys are pointing out we got the same thing cooking on the right. See? There's that steep, boom, right? It's the same silly little pattern. And it's going to go into our library. See that? See, it's very busy here. It's very busy right there. And, you know, as we learn to recognize these things, it's like, boom. But guess what? If I'm sitting here and all I want to do is get long, okay? All I want to do is get long. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see a bar level press. Everybody see it? Boom, boom, boom. Expand. And see the squashing, the toggling back and forth? And see the squashing, the toggling back and forth? Zoom. If all I want to do is get long, I'm going to use this for a reason to get long. Or, if I'm watching that we just popped a new swing, and I'm watching price on the way up, I can come up with an LSB here and say, pop that press into something like that. And so this way, I am not getting long in something that's heavy. See, this is isolated by itself. This is a bar level press that's right here. Isolated by itself. This is a bar level press that's just, boom, offering three types of trades. Add a dimension to that. Add a dimension to that. Watch. So let's say you come over here. Let's just do this clean. Let's say you come over here, right? And you get right here. And you get this bar level press. So we spent time learning the press, and today we're spending a little time putting it in situations. And you come up here, and you go zoom. This particular bar level press is calling for a type 2. And the type 2 is liable to be right around where that major is. Does that make sense? I want to get us out of the problem of just hitting things indiscriminately and move us to the next stage of putting these things within a major structure. It's an extra step, but we got to step. I mean, we can't just stick at one step and say this is our gold. I mean, you could trade this and try all three types of trades, but we want to take an extra step and understand a little bit about the rest of the story in here. So once we learn how to do swing level press and bar level press, then we're going to learn some of the different situations that's part of our practice about where they're happening and different ways we can use them and what might lend itself to a type 2? What might lend itself to a type 3? What might lend itself for a push? Right? This adds a little level of uncertainty because we don't know which now. But we can begin to learn and see the story price is telling over and over and say, at least not buy this just because, but if we're bent, we're just going to use this. And, you know, you wouldn't be horrible to buy this because there is a little bit of swap, but this is the minor into major family. So, Nate, we're going to have to make a whole minor into major family of things. Can it be a pivot? Does it need to be clean air? Once we can identify it, Raj, right, just go and start looking at the different situations. I'm highlighting a particular situation in a very current market here. But all I'm saying is now we want to take these things and move to the next level of seeing them within price, right, within a major swing. And then as you do that, Raj, right, we're going to start documenting these things and learning, right? We're going to say, all right, let's take, and it takes time. Let's take this versus clean air and not clean air, and put a bunch of charts up, and we're going to learn stuff this way. Right here, the major lesson I'm keying off of is it's not an indiscriminate thing. There's a minor in the major, so don't always boom. Nate says, channel called Major Dad. Not sure what another pop culture reference it could be. Let's not go to pop culture, and we'll go back to the library. Let's go retro. Let's go old school with it. I have to find a librarian. All right, maybe we'll look up the Royal Society. So that's a whole minor into major thing going on there, right? And so we're learning some things. And again, this comes from my review work. Now do you see this guy stand out? Within? Yeah. And that comes from, you know, a little bit of review work. And you know what? If there's enough room in one of these, you can play a long and a short. And I'm not saying this is always a type 2, okay? I'm saying in this case, I take everybody's exuberance and I hit them on the head with it. In this case, I take advantage of people who are, oh boy, it's time to buy beans. We've been struggling. We've been struggling. We've been struggling. And all they do, it's like that pop machine, right, Ed? What is it? The pop thing, the little guys stick up and you pop them, pop their head with the little hammer. See, they pop their head up and I smack them. And so this gets everybody off balance because here we go. And they're just missing it. They're just missing it. And listen, it doesn't matter if I'm on beans or I'm on a yearly chart. Same thing goes. Whack-a-mole. Thank you. Whack-a-mole. The Royal Society, just for everybody, that's the world's oldest independent scientific academy dedicated to promoting excellence in science. There are some very good movies, old movies from that stuff. I can't remember now, Ed, but there's some good ones. And so there's something to learn about not just hitting every swap indiscriminately. There's something big to learn there. There you go. Ed's got a picture of whack-a-mole. Whack-a-mole. All right. So we have some other things I want to do. We have some things we can look at live. So that particular pattern, right? Remember, I'm gonna start making my own library, and we're just playing now, right? We're just playing now to see some of these things, but it's very familiar. And as you have experience, you start to see it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And now you start to get very familiar with price, like you get familiar with a family member. You start to get very familiar. But also keep in mind, a lot of this was an exercise in review. Let's see if we can find something live. All right. Everybody see the situation, right? Should form up. Start with swings. And we pulled this 240 up a little while back to watch live. Minor into major structure again, right? And it's doing its live thing. What else can we notice? I notice a little bit of that. That pops. This is like the second time we've seen that. That pops into that guy. So a little bar level press pops into that guy, and it's not turning into a type 1 here. Maybe it turns into a type 3. So we see this bar level press comes into this clean air. So this is a good start. We can draw a simple median line. And if you happen to pick this chart for your practice, well, you'd just be getting short up here with an appropriate stop. And you'd be learning something. You'd be learning something along the way. All right, so that's live. And so that's interesting, that press at the top. And then you start to think, where else did I see that? There's one in the New Zealand. Whew. This isn't a minor into major, but there's something going on with that press at the top into clean air of things. All right. So I'm going to take the rest of the time here. Actually, I got one more live thing to look at. No, you know what? I'm going to let you guys do it. CAD Daily. We're tracking the CAD Daily, okay? Remember our little LSB? You guys stay live with this thing and see what you see. All right? Just look for swings and press structures. You guys stay live. We'll do this Monday. I'll make a note. CAD Daily Monday. CAD Daily Monday. Now, I want to do a quick thing. Somebody asked me about, and I'm going to do a longer thing eventually on this. Somebody asked me about, they're relatively new, asked me about marking out. They see me marking out gaps and outside bars, and they don't really have a handle on the Y part. And we will be doing some price action sessions on that. But just for a quickie, right? Just for a quickie, what we want to do when it comes to gaps. So I'm just going to describe really quickly gaps, outside bars, tails. The markings I'm doing, because this was his question. Let me make sure. So he says, he's been watching my live sessions and he's catching up. Appreciate what we're offering here. He says, I can smell the truth a mile away. That's good. He says, please assist. I'm having a difficult time identifying how to mark gaps, outside bars, and tails when you represent them. And so he says on his own, he sees them and smiles and finds them after the fact. Okay, we'll be doing a whole session on these because I got to put some oomph behind it. All right? I got to put some oomph behind it. But right now, we'll just do a quick how to mark. We'll do the technical thing. We'll just do it very quickly just so we know. I'm going to call a gap either a real gap, it can be a real gap, boom, or what we call a wide range bar gap, bigger than the last 3 bars, and there'll be a space. Okay, that's a gap, bigger than the last 3 bars, and then there'll be a space. And how I mark a gap is basically I'm going to take this zoom. What got zoomed? Well, this contraction got zoomed. So I'm going to take the instructions for an up gap. The instructions are mark bottom 1/3 of an up gap, okay? Just put a box around the bottom 1/3 of it. For a down gap, we're just going to reverse that. And then you'll see how we use these later on. But this is just a marking. So I want to give them a quick technical instruction. So a down gap has got the same wide range bar. And you're going to mark the upper third of the gap, okay? So you see me, I'm marking the coil, but you really just need to come to the gap. And then we'll talk about it, right? Just mark the upper third of the gap. And that's going to be the base of a projected mountain. Outside bars are easy too. With an outside bar, it's representing something. See here, it's zoom. What got zoomed? I'm typing and nothing's happening. Zoom. What got zoomed? Okay. Well, these guys got zoomed. Contraction, expansion. And it's the same thing for tails or for outside bars. Zoom. What got zoomed? Well, these guys got zoomed both ways. So for an outside bar, we're just going to mark the contraction, basically. So for instance, if you look at this outside bar, we're going to come, it's not a good one. I'm going to mark the contraction of that. And then we'll have to go find good ones when we practice. So zoom, what got zoomed? So an outside bar is going to mark this way, and we'll watch it. And tails are easy too. And we'll do a whole series on this, don't worry. We just can't do everything at once. But we do want to catch up a little bit. So a tail, I'm going to define as I want significance, okay? You don't have to add this, but I like to add this. Wide range bar, meaning it's going to be bigger than the last 3 bars, okay? That opens, then closes in upper third. Okay, so that will be an up tail, okay? And this will be in bottom third. That'll be a down tail. So this is just a quick price action guy here. So we know how to mark them as a reference point. And how we're going to mark a tail is easy. We're just going to basically mark the tail. Okay? That's all. If it's this guy, See, we're opening and closing in that third, right? Then we'll mark this part of the tail. If there happens to be something on the left that's getting zoomed, I'll get a little tighter. So that's how we mark these, and that's how we define these. So a gap bigger than the last 3 bars, a space, mark the bottom third. Gap down, same thing, mark the upper third. Outside bar, mark the contraction, mark the middle. Tail, mark the tail. And a wide range bar is bigger than the last 3 bars. And so this becomes important, right? Because we then can learn to see it in a relative fashion. So for instance, all this right here is a tail. And that's an open and a close. All this right here is a tail. And that's an open, and that's a close. And you can see there are mountains and valleys also. So that's where we'll end up leading with this. But that's how to mark them. And we'll go do practice. So let's take and at least find a couple gaps that we can ground this in. Okay. Let's fit this definition. Okay. Wide range bar, it's bigger than the last 3, and you see there's a space. So what we're going to do is mark the upper third. See, we're now making distinctions in the flow. Wide range bar, bigger than the last 3 with a space. And so here we'll mark the bottom third. Now, do you see in this very, very simple example the interplay? Right? I know we've been doing presses and all that. But once we can make these distinctions, does everybody see the very simple interplay by just marking something that's, that we can pick out, that we've learned to pick out, very objectively? It's got a definition. It fits the definition. You guys tracking me on this? Do you see how this forms up a chart? We'll make a whole framework out of these gaps coming up. But right now, right, you see it? Doesn't this is calming, right? Oh, I kind of got a picture here. Yeah, I kind of get this. That doesn't mean automatically switch to gaps tomorrow, okay? We're just learning a little something, that's all. See, now, look what I've done. I've tuned out swings and presses, just gaps. See, one by one, and then we add things together slowly. But look, I can take this definition. It's significant. Why? How do I know? It keeps retesting the damn thing. It either holds or it's something. It's something. I don't know what. I don't know who's doing it. I don't know if they're whales or sharks or minnows or stingrays. But I see it. Something's going on here. I don't have to predict when I see that. I can say, oh, gap, type 1, type 2, or type 3. No predictions. Okay, gap, type 1, type 2, or type 3. And then I can watch the interplay because it's got a certain thing. It's projecting. This was projecting a mountain. This is projecting a valley. And see, there's no other things that meet this. So it's almost like I don't see anything else but this and this. That's it. That's what I'm seeing in this guy. All right, now we see the interplay, right? Look, it gaps up into it, right? It's not as pretty of a gap, but you see the interplay here. Look at this one, it stacks 1, 2, 3, just like my model. Look at this one, it stacks 1, 2, 3, just like my model. And look at this one, boom. So there's something going on here. There's something going on here. Let me add a dimension, one more dimension. You ready? Swing. Right? Swing. Bigger swing. Either way. But let me just stick with this. You know, we can add one more dimension here. And then we can see, you know, interplays between things. And we can only do that once we can identify gaps. So I'm going to leave this session and just say that's how you do a gap. All right? And then we'll play some more later on. But that's how you do a gap. And you can see what it's doing there. And then we'll get more complicated and do relative gaps, so on and so forth. So for instance, this is what I call a 3 bars hard gap. See it? Opens, closes at the top. That's hard up. Closes at the tippy top. That's hard up. Closes at the tippy top. That's hard up. Closes at the tippy top. That's hard up. I guess I should define hard up while I'm here. So tail, outside bars, gaps, hard up is open. Close at the tippy top. No, I'm not going over 3 gap attack. Stop. Doesn't go in the library. Can you imagine putting that in the Royal Society, Nate? We can't do it. They wouldn't have us, right? So I'm relying on you to be the guy with the stick up your butt. You're going to have to filter things out. That or we got to hire a librarian. You're a poor filter. All right, so you get that this is all gap, right? So the same thing. It's very distinct. It's the essence of a gap, and I can define this too. See, they're bouncing. There's something to it. Look at this. Boom, gap back the other way, and return. Now, if you put this particular gap and swings in a very, very simple story, you're like, oh, I need to get short. And we still don't know if it'll make it or not, but you guys get the idea, right? All right, so, ouch, that hurt. All right, so we'll watch. And, guess what? If this thing decides to turn up, I'll turn right back up with it. I don't care. So we did a whole bunch of million lessons today. Let's leave it there. And that's how to identify and mark gaps, outside bars and tails. So we'll watch some of these markets. Take a look at your daily CAD. We're going to follow it live. And we'll come back and talk some more about markets. And I got a couple more patterns, Nate. You guys, Grace, this is a familiar one to you guys. Tell me. This is a familiar, especially in the euro. Okay? You guys come up with a way by Monday, kind of describe that. Okay? Revisit Snap. I'll put it on the list, Nate. We'll revisit Snap. You don't want to get me going again, right? Revisit Snap Monday. Daily CAD Monday. And this euro. I want you to see it, right? Come up with what it's doing here. You've seen it before. We've done it before. We've played it before. This is something going into the library. It's very representative of one of our press structures. So just think about that. We'll take a picture so we don't forget. And we touched on JPY Euro. If you feel much better about life, there you go. There's your Euro practice. There's your Euro practice trade, Nate. Pop in with the 30 tick stop, right? Right when they get excited. Whack-a-mole. All right, so I'll see you guys on Monday. You guys have a good weekend. Thanks for the questions. Maybe we'll elucidate on the turning into the 18 losers frustration thing a little more next week. So thanks, Pete. You guys have a good weekend. See you Monday.